Hello and welcome. First, I want to acknowledge your decision to invest your time with us today. We don't take that for granted. My name is Shane Whalen, and welcome to the new retirement reality. Ladies and gentlemen, this is important information. If there are any regulators watching this presentation, I'm sure they would agree that it's important for you to always read disclosures whenever you invest in anything. We encourage you to check out our company. Our RIA is Brookstone Capital Management. Okay, got it memorized? Excellent. Let's move on. We hope that through discussing the new retirement reality with you today, you gain some insight and call us for a consultation, as we believe you will really benefit from it. But we also believe the beginning of a great relationship starts with us listening. It's not about us preaching to you, it's about listening. On that note, let's watch a short video.
It's just, there's all this pressure, you know? And sometimes it feels like it's right up on me and I can just feel it, like literally feel it in my head, and it's relentless. And I don't know if it's going to stop. I mean, that's the thing that scares me the most, is that I don't know if it's ever going to stop.
Yeah. Well, you do have a nail in your head.
It is not about the nail.
Are you sure? Because, I mean, I'll bet if we got that out of there.
Stop trying to fix it.
No, I'm not trying to fix it. I'm just pointing out that maybe the nail is causing.
You always do this. You always try to fix things when what I really need is for you to just listen.
See, I don't think that is what you need. I think what you need is to get the nail
See, you're
out.
not even listening now.
Okay, fine. I will listen. Fine.
It's just, sometimes it's like there's this achy, I don't know what it is. And I'm not sleeping very well at all. And all my sweaters are snagged. I mean, all of them.
That sounds really hard.
It is. Thank you. Ow!
Oh, come on. Ow. If you would just...
Don't
try to see things. Funny, right? Does that strike a chord with any of you? No pun intended, but there was an example of two people butting heads. Why? Because there was no listening. Let's face it, some of us are great listeners, and some of us think we are great listeners. You know anyone guilty of this? You're in a conversation with someone. The whole time they're talking, you're leapfrogging ahead, thinking about what you want to say instead of actively listening. It's a very common occurrence, but we firmly believe that by listening, we can foster a successful relationship. So why am I sharing this with you? Have you ever had a problem so important that it felt like you weren't being heard? And the solution, even if it was the right one, didn't matter because the connection wasn't made. You didn't feel like the other person was really listening to you, or might not have had the best intentions at the top of their mind. I'm really emphasizing this to explain how we treat our clients. We start by listening to what you have to say, your priorities, your goals and dreams, and most importantly, your concerns. Okay, for this part, everybody take out a piece of paper and a pen or pencil. Go ahead and pause the video and then restart it when you're ready. So let's put this belief into practice. Rather than me just talking at you for an hour, we want to know what's on your mind. When you think about retirement, what are your biggest questions and concerns? A, I'm not clear that I've done everything I need to achieve my retirement goals. Or B, I'm not 100% certain I'll have enough income to support my lifestyle throughout retirement. Okay, great. These two seem awfully similar, don't they? What do those two concerns really revolve around? Running out of money. Did you know the single biggest fear of retirees is outliving their money? In fact, 65% of retirees will outlive their money. Let that sink in for a second. More than half of retirees will run out of money. Now, as financial advisors, we could say it's okay to spend money. We want you to enjoy your money. After all, it's your money, not your family's, not your kids', it's yours. but it's not okay to run out of money. Do you know the first rule about making money? Don't lose it. There are 4 important words to keep in mind when it comes to retirement planning: guaranteed, sustainable, lifetime income. It's important that we're always thinking about that. Now, how about C? I'm concerned I'm not being as tax efficient as I could be. Well, that's fair. It's important to only pay your fair share of taxes, nothing more. What about D? Concerned about the impact to your spouse or family in the event of your early death? Anyone worried about E? Being a burden to family or needing additional care later in life? And I'm guessing the rest of you fall into category F. You've got it all covered. You're just here because you're bored. That's all right. We'll be covering all of these anyway. Thank you for participating. All right, let's take a look at your retirement route. Either you're already in retirement or you're planning for it. Either way, it's important to understand the path ahead and the key decisions that will shape your journey. Because no matter where you are today, what truly matters is having a clear direction and a strategy designed around you. We're going to watch a couple of short videos featuring 2 couples in different stages of retirement planning. You may even recognize these couples or see a bit of yourself in their stories. As you watch, think about which situation feels most familiar to you and what lessons you might take away from each.
Meet Fred and Wilma. They're the all-American family. They grew up in middle-class families, graduated from college, got married, and raised 2 great kids and 1 very friendly dog. Along the way, Fred and Wilma both had good jobs, contributed to their 401k plans, and maintained a reasonable household budget. They lived a conservative, comfortable lifestyle in a nice home, following in the footsteps of their parents. As years passed and retirement approached, Fred and Wilma felt that they had done everything right during their lives. They saved well, avoided financial problems, and kept their expenses low. Imagine their surprise when Fred and Wilma discovered that at age 65, they didn't really know if they would have enough money to retire, especially if their retirement lasted 20 or 30 years. Even though they had done a good job of saving, they lacked a strategic retirement plan. They weren't broke. In fact, they had money in the bank and their retirement accounts. They just weren't certain that it would be enough to last them the rest of their lives, and they were forced to put off the things they had been dreaming about, like traveling and visiting their grandkids more. If Fred and Wilma had consulted with a financial professional and put a plan in place that addressed their future expenses, they would be able to enjoy their retirement today. The challenges of today's pre-retirees and retirees are different than in the past, and a strategic plan is required to overcome these challenges. Unfortunately, millions of Americans are just like Fred and Wilma and lack a strategy to help them deal with the new retirement reality and financially prepare them for their retirement years.
So, what was the biggest issue with Fred and Wilma? They didn't have a plan. You can't say they didn't have money. They had money. They just didn't have a retirement plan that would take them the distance. Unfortunately, this is a common tell. Many times, clients will think that they're covered and that they are doing everything right. They were good savers. They didn't live beyond their means. They enrolled in 401k plans. They paid off their debts. But they didn't create a plan to elongate their wealth so that they could enjoy their money in retirement without the fear of outliving it. Okay, now let's look at the second couple.
Meet George and Martha. They're the all-American family. They grew up in middle-class families, graduated from college, got married, and raised 3 great kids and 1 very cute cat. They had excellent education and good jobs. George and Martha contributed to their 401k plans, lived within their means, saved whatever they could. They lived a conservative, comfortable lifestyle in a nice home, and even moved a few times. George and Martha were like so many families, with one small but significant difference. They realized that they needed help and a roadmap to plan for things like paying for college education, healthcare expenses, financial emergencies, and above all, their retirement. So George and Martha made an effort to educate themselves financially by building a relationship with a reputable financial professional. They laid out their vision for retirement and developed a roadmap to get them there. By the time George and Martha reached retirement age, they were prepared. They had multiple sources of guaranteed retirement income, and had also planned for how they would deal with events such as market declines, the need for long-term medical care, or the death of either spouse. George and Martha's retirement years truly were golden. They were able to do things they dreamed about. Their due diligence, planning, and working with a financial professional rewarded them with many years of financial bliss.
So what was the biggest difference between George and Martha and Fred and Wilma? They had a plan. I like this video. It covered a lot of things already touched on. Did you notice the multiple bags of money? And what were the 4 important words we went over? Guaranteed, sustainable, lifetime income. They planned to deal with illness. They took potential market losses into consideration. And what did I say was the first rule of making money was? Don't lose it. The moral of the story is that George and Martha realized that the old way of doing things wasn't necessarily working. So they took matters into their own hands. They worked with a financial advisor to put a plan together to make their retirement dreams a reality. Now, the financial landscape for retirement has changed drastically over the years. I mean, think about it. What retirement looks like for us today is completely different from what it was for our parents' generation, and especially our grandparents' generation. The tools have changed, the rules have changed, and the responsibility has shifted more and more onto you, the individual. So let's take a look at how retirement planning has evolved and what that means for your future. I mean, look at what the press is saying. Has the pandemic changed the future of retirement? A new retirement reality, working beyond the traditional age. The new retirement reality for women. Major financial outlets are all pointing to the same thing, the new reality of retirement. They all see the writing on the wall. Retirement, as we once knew it, has changed. So we can all agree that there's a new retirement reality. But the real question is, what does your personal retirement reality look like? This is where it gets exciting. You get to design it intentionally around the things that matter most to you. Think of it like creating a retirement bucket list. The places you want to go, the things you want to experience, the people you want to spend more time with. Outline your goals, your dreams, your vision for the next chapter of your life. Because planning your retirement starts with knowing what you're planning for. And there are 3 things you should include on your retirement bucket list. You have your must-haves, want-to-haves, and how-to-haves. These 3 categories are the foundation for building a retirement plan that's not only realistic, but meaningful. Let's break down each one and talk about what belongs in each of them. Your must-haves include the essentials, the things you can't live without. We're talking about food, clothing, housing, and utilities. So how much money will you really need to keep food on the table, clothes on your back, and a roof over your head? And while we're at it, don't forget to build a sinking fund into your budget. That's just money set aside for life's surprises. Things like car repairs, home maintenance, and other unexpected expenses that always seems to pop up when you least expect them. Once we have our essentials covered, then we can start talking about our want-to-haves. These are the things we really want in retirement, the experiences and goals that make life meaningful. Maybe it's those vacations you've been daydreaming about, golf trips with friends, or moving closer to your family. Let me share a few of my want to haves. I want the freedom to travel when I want without worrying about money or obligations. Not because I need it, but because I've worked hard and I want to enjoy that flexibility. For me, that's a want to have. It's not essential for survival, but it's something that makes retirement meaningful to me. Second, I want the ability to help my kids and grandkids, whether that's funding their education, helping them start a business, or simply being there for them without financial stress. To me, that's part of building a legacy, not just retiring. And third, I want a second home in a place my wife and I love, somewhere we can spend time together, relax, make memories with family. It's not a must have, but it's something that keeps me motivated and focused when I think about retirement planning. For most of us, retirement isn't just about paying the bills, it's about enjoying your money. But in order to do that, we need a plan. Think of it as lifestyle planning. What memories do you want to make during retirement? So, we've talked about your must haves and your want to haves, but how do we actually fund them? How do we supplement those needs and goals in retirement? There are three primary sources of income that typically fund retirement: Social Security and pensions, personal investments and savings, and your 401ks and IRAs. Now, for our parents and grandparents, Social Security and pensions were usually enough to cover the must haves, the essentials. But that's changed. In today's world, pensions are rare in the private sector. They still exist for government and military employees, but for most people, they're no longer a primary source of income. When it comes to claiming Social Security, there are two key things you need to think about. First, when are you going to claim your benefits? And second, will you be paying taxes on those benefits? The answers aren't the same for everyone. They depend on factors like your health, marital status, work history, and more. These are the kinds of details we help you sort through during a consultation so you can make the most informed decision for your retirement goals. Next, we have personal investments and savings. These often serve as your safety net, the funds you draw on for emergencies, unexpected expenses, or opportunities that come up along the way. Then there are your 401ks, IRAs, and Roth IRAs. These are the accounts most people rely on today to fund their want to haves, those experiences and goals that make retirement enjoyable. But here's the reality: with these types of accounts, you're responsible for managing them. You take on the risk and the consequences of how to convert these assets into income. And that's one of the biggest pieces of this new retirement reality. But here's the good news: you don't have to do it alone. That's exactly what we're here to help with. We'll help you design a strategy that balances your income sources, protects your lifestyle, and supports your long term goals. We want you to pay attention to new realities, not old perceptions. I'll say that again. Pay attention to new realities, not old perceptions. What is that a picture of? You're right, it's a stop sign. And what color is the stop sign? Red, exactly. And a yield sign? What color is that? Most people say yellow, but actually, a yield sign is red. See, our perception tells us it's yellow because that's what it used to be. But the reality changed years ago, and many people never noticed. That's exactly how it is with retirement planning. Old perceptions don't match the new realities anymore. Those of you who said yellow probably said that because when you were younger, yield signs were yellow. But the federal government changed the color back in 1971. Now they're red. I know it has nothing to do with finance, but it's a perfect example: reality versus perception. We don't know what we don't know. So as you listen today, do it with the understanding that the new reality may be very different from your old perceptions. And be honest, how many of you are going to be looking for a yield sign on your next road trip. I know I did first time I heard that. On the same page you clicked to watch this video, there was a link to a document. Download that document, print it if you can, and come back to this spot in the video. Now, on that form, you'll see a list of common retirement concerns. As we go through each one in the presentation, I want you to grade them from 1 to 10. 10 means it's a major concern for you. 1 means it's something you're not worried about at all. And be honest, these forms are for you. According to data from the Social Security Administration, a healthy male age 65 has a 50% chance of living beyond 88. A healthy female age 65 has a 50% chance of living beyond 90. And a healthy couple age 65 has a 50% chance of living beyond 94 and a 25% chance of living beyond 99. That means your retirement savings may need to last longer than those of any previous generation. We need to plan for that intentionally. Remember those 4 important words: guaranteed, sustainable, lifetime income. That's the foundation of a retirement plan that lasts as long as you do. We've facilitated this conversation for years with our own clients. And honestly, it's one of our favorites. Most people don't realize retirement actually has 3 distinct phases. One thing we've learned is how helpful it is to have a clear framework for what those phases look like and how your expenses may change as you move through them. So what do I mean by phases of retirement? We found that many of our clients actually spend more when they first retire. We call this the go-go phase. This is when you actually have the time to travel, spoil the grandkids, or dive into that hobby you've been dreaming about for years. Hopefully this phase lasts a long time, and with proper planning, it can. Then at some point, most people begin to slow down. We call that the slow go phase. You're still active, still enjoying life, just maybe not traveling as much or doing quite as much as before. And then finally, we have the no-go phase. That's when people spend more time at home, or physically, they're simply not able to do as much as they used to. Hopefully, that's your shortest phase. But unfortunately, it can also be one of the most expensive. Our goal is to help you plan for all 3 phases. One mistake we never want you to make is being so worried about outliving your money that you don't enjoy it while you're able to. We don't want you reaching that later phase of life and realizing you could have done more, but waited too long. We want you to thrive in retirement, not just survive. And part of my job is helping prevent you from missing out on the go-go years. Because once they're gone, you can't get them back. Remember, this is your money, not your kids' money, not your grandkids' money, yours. So enjoy it while you can. Moving on to number 2. The second biggest challenge of the new retirement reality is simple. You may need more money than you think. If we're living longer, it makes sense that we'll need more money, right? Why do you think that is? Exactly. Inflation. It's the silent killer. Right now, our reported inflation rate is around 5%. Not bad, right? But here's the thing. The government actually removes certain items from that calculation. Things like energy and food prices. So what's reported as 5% could actually be closer to 9%. Let's look at an example. Even if we just estimate a modest 3% inflation rate, look at what it takes to maintain your standard of living over time. You'll see why planning for inflation isn't optional, it's essential. Let's put this into perspective. If you live on $50,000 a year today, you'll need about $67,000 in 10 years and just over $90,000 in 20 years. And there's a very real possibility that many of us could live 30 years or more in retirement. In that case, you need at least $121,000 just to maintain the same $50,000 lifestyle. Even though the government reports that inflation has been relatively low in recent years, we still need to account for what's coming in the future. Your basic lifestyle income can't remain stagnant. It has to grow to keep pace with rising costs throughout your retirement. That's why planning for inflation isn't just smart, it's necessary. Kind of a fun chart here. Back in 75, the average price of a house was around $40,000. Now it's $428,000. Eggs were 77 cents a dozen. Now they're $3.85. But really, depending on where you are, it may be difficult finding eggs less than $5.50. A movie ticket was just over $2. Now it's a whopping $17. And lastly, a car was just under $5,000, and now they are over $34,000. This is the impact of inflation. Inflation is a silent killer. Let's look at our sheets again and grade ourselves on the second topic. Are you worried that your money won't withstand future inflation? After seeing those numbers, is that a concern of yours? If so, to what degree? Moving on to number 3. Now that we're living longer, there can be significant healthcare costs. Healthcare expenses are through the roof right now, aren't they? Prescription costs, co-pays, you name it. They're at an all-time high. Maybe you're thinking, well, once I'm eligible for Medicare, I'll be covered. But that's not necessarily the case. They recently bumped up Social Security premiums. And what followed right behind? Medicare premiums. Has anyone experienced this? Maybe you, someone you know, has been seeing the same doctor for 20 years, and then suddenly gets a letter saying that doctor no longer accepts Medicare patients. Do you know why this is happening? It's because Medicare reimbursements are decreasing, but the premiums are going up. Most doctors' offices now have to hire a full-time employee whose only job is to chase down those Medicare reimbursements. And on average, they have to follow up 7 times just to get paid. Doctors are having to fight to get their money. And unfortunately, that's affecting the quality of care, in addition to what's covered, and even which doctors you're allowed to see. It's a real problem. And it's one more reason retirement planning needs to include a strategy for healthcare costs. This is a scary slide. If you're a healthy 65-year-old with an average life expectancy, you'll need about $300,000 to cover healthcare premiums and out-of-pocket expenses, things like prescriptions and co-pays during retirement. And if you're blessed to live to 95, you can expect that number to climb to nearly $500,000. So, what's your plan for that? Let's go back to your sheet. The next statement mentions the concern of rising healthcare needs and the increasing costs that come with them. How worried are you that your retirement income won't be enough to cover those healthcare expenses? If you're retired military and have TRICARE for life, you could probably circle a 1. That's one thing you don't have to worry about. But if you're relying on private health insurance, or you're uncertain about the future of Medicare, you might be feeling a little uneasy, and that's okay. Circle closer to a 10. Remember, the goal here is honesty. This exercise helps you see where your concerns really are so we can create a plan to address them. Now, moving on to number 4, market volatility and the negative sequence of returns. So, what does that actually mean? Well, we all know what market volatility is, right? Markets go up and markets go down. So what does negative returns refer to? That's the negative impact losses can have on you and your assets, especially when they happen at the wrong time. Not that there's ever really a good time, but for example, The Great Recession of 2008 took a major toll on millions of retirees who had their retirement assets at the risk in the market. As we get closer to retirement, we may not have the time to recover from a large market drop. And beginning to pull income from your retirement savings during a turndown can create an insurmountable setback. That's why understanding and planning for market risk is such an important part of the new retirement reality. Let's look at the tale of two brothers, John and Steve. Both retired, both invested $500,000 in the real market, the S&P 500, and both took $30,000 a year in withdrawals to supplement their retirement income. That's just about a 6% withdrawal rate. Everything about their plan was the same, except for one thing: the year they retired. John retired in 1990. Steve retired in 2000. Believe me, in this situation, you do not want to be Steve. This example perfectly illustrates how timing and market conditions can have a huge difference in your retirement income. Who remembers the decade of the 90s? Pretty solid decade, right? John starts off with a small loss, followed by a decent gain, and then a few modest years. But overall, he experienced steady, consistent growth. In fact, John lived through the best 5-year gain in the past 60 years and ended up with a portfolio worth more than $1.2 million. Now let's take a look at his brother Steve. Steve, who retired in 2000, didn't do quite as well. He started off with 3 bad years in a row, and even though he only had 4 negative years total, the damage from those early losses was devastating. The 2008 crash alone saw a negative 38.5% return. And remember, this was also the decade of Y2K and the 9/11 attacks, all events that hit the market hard. By continuing to withdraw $30,000 a year on top of those market losses, Steve's final portfolio dropped to just $96,000. Now, if you're thinking, well, yeah, but what about John? Let's let John catch up to see what happened to his portfolio. First, let's take a quick look side by side. John and Steve each invested the exact same amount of money for the exact same number of years and withdrew at the exact same rate. John experienced some losses too, just like Steve. But here's the difference. Steve was the only one who ran out of money. So let's see what happens when John continued his journey through the 2000s. Remember, in 1999, John's portfolio was worth about $1.2 million. By 2010, it was down to $679,000. So yes, it did drop in value during that decade. But the 2010s were moderately good years. He had a few small losses, but by 2019, John's portfolio had recovered to $1.3 million. On to number 5. Remember, we're living longer, so there may be some unforeseen consequences that come with extended care. You want to know something funny? The financial industry figured out that people don't like the term long-term care. So we changed it to extended care. But guess what? It's the exact same thing. Of the two, would you rather be the one giving the care or the one getting the care? Right, probably giving. We're a giving society, and deep down, most of us don't want to be a burden on someone else, do we? Of course, that's where long-term care or extended care becomes a challenge because it's expensive, like really expensive. And if it's not planned for properly, it can drain retirement savings faster than almost anything else. Long-term care creates what I like to call a financial blind spot. But did you know it can also cause other issues? What many people don't realize is that there are 2 major threats that often hide in that blind spot: the need for extended care and the death of a spouse. Both of these can be devastating to our hopes and our dreams for a comfortable retirement. But here's something even more important. We're not the only ones affected by these threats. We need to shift our focus from ourselves to those we love, because the real victims are often our family members, the people we care about most. So why do I say that? Let's talk about what really happens when one of these situations occurs. There's also a literal physical strain that long-term care places on the caregiver. Bathing, lifting, cleaning, laundering, cooking, running errands, and taking you to doctor's appointments. The list goes on and on. But the real strain it puts on the family member isn't just physical, it's emotional. It's the stress, the anxiety, the exhaustion that builds over time. Long-term care can seriously undermine the health of the caregiving spouse or partner, and it can even destroy families. Imagine this. There are 3 kids, and only one steps up to take care of mom. What happens when the others call and ask, "Hey, how's mom doing?" What does that caregiving child say? They say, "Get your you-know-what over here, lend a hand and find out." It creates resentment. And over time, that resentment can tear families apart. Long-term care can have serious consequences, not only for the health of the caregiver, but for the family unit as a whole. That's why we need a plan for this, to protect not just ourselves, but the people we love. Let's take a look at the real numbers for healthcare costs, and you can find your state on the chart. Private care, about $120,000 a year. Semi-private, between $60,000 and $80,000. Assisted living, around $3,500 a month. And if you stay at home, which most people prefer, you'd still need between 15 and 30 hours of care per week. Here in our area, that runs about $18 to $20 an hour, 6 to 12 hours a day. So as you can see, long-term health care is expensive, no matter where you live. So what are the solutions? Well, one option that's not on the list is moving in with your daughter. We already talked about what turning a family member into a caregiver can do. Make sure you hear this. If you have one of the older, longer-term versions of long-term care insurance, keep it. Don't let it lapse. Do not change it. If someone is trying to get you to switch from company to A to company B, it's probably because they're earning a commission from that switch. Don't do it. Now, most of us aren't fans of traditional long-term care insurance. Why is that? Let's talk about it. Let's talk about some of these things. The top 3 reasons most Americans don't get long-term care insurance are simple. Number 1, it's too expensive. Number 2, the rates keep going up. And number 3, if you don't end up needing it, you lose all that money. But there's a newer program that came out about 14 years ago that addresses those concerns. You pay into it roughly 10 years, and it includes long-term care coverage. It also comes with something called a death benefit. Sounds like an oxymoron, doesn't it? What that means is if you don't end up needing long-term care, the money you've paid into the program goes to your kids. It's a way to make sure the money you've invested isn't wasted. But that shouldn't be the only reason to consider it. Remember what we said earlier. This is your money, not your kids. The real benefit is the living benefit. If you do end up needing long-term care, you can access those funds tax-free. Now, this program isn't right for everyone, but for some people, it's absolutely worth looking into. So I'll ask again, what's your long-term care plan? And remember, it cannot be to move in with your daughter. Your daughter's busy. She might have kids, a career, and a full-time schedule of her own. That's not a plan. That's a backup that nobody really wants to use. So what's it going to be? Go ahead and take out your sheet and mark your level of concern for this topic. If you already have a plan in place, great, circle a 1. But if this isn't something you really thought about before, you might be closer to a 9 or 10. Take a moment to grade yourself. Be honest about where you are. All right. Once you've got that marked, let's move on to the next topic. Challenge number 6. Your legacy might be impacted. So what is a legacy really? Your legacy isn't just about money. It's about passing on to your children and grandchildren the values, the lessons, and the memories that matter most. When I think about legacy, it's not about numbers on the statement or the size of a retirement account. For me, legacy is about impact. I want my legacy to be that I help families, business owners, and employees feel secure about their future, that I made their financial journey less stressful, more rewarding, and more purposeful. Personally, I want to leave behind more than just wealth. I want to leave behind opportunities for my family, for the next generation, and for the people I've been fortunate enough to serve. My hope is that when people think of me, they remember someone who built trust, who gave back, and who made life just a little better for those around him. But that's not what we're here to talk about today, is it? We're here to talk about financial legacy and how to make sure that the wealth you've built continues to serve a purpose long after you're gone. What is a really bad word when you talk about legacy? Someone always says taxes, but the real word is probate. You can avoid probate on almost all of your assets. CDs, checking accounts, savings account, deposit boxes, money market, bond accounts. You can list these as TOD, transfer on death, or POD, pay on death. It'll go straight to whomever you want it to go to without delay, probate, or fees. But hear this, do not list your trust as a beneficiary for your IRAs or annuities. I repeat, do not list your trust as a beneficiary for your IRAs or annuities. And if you already have, change it. If the beneficiaries of your trust are your 3 children, then change the beneficiaries of your IRA to your 3 children. The reason is simple. If a trust is inheriting your IRA or annuity, a trust is a non-person, and it is taxed at the trust tax rate, which is upwards of 37% right now. When children, grandchildren, nieces, nephews, brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles, parents, or grandparents, did I miss anybody? When they inherit an IRA or annuity, they don't have to pay taxes up front. They can pay it over 10 years in installments or wait until the last week of the 10th year. In our consultation, we will do beneficiary checkups where we do a deep dive into your accounts and beneficiaries. I know of one couple where the husband died, but he had forgotten to change the beneficiary from his ex-wife to his current wife. So you can guess who received those checks. His ex-wife. Little errors like those can be overlooked if you aren't careful, but we can do a checkup to make sure all your accounts are in order. Let's go back again to your sheet. Are you concerned about the optimization of your legacy or a estate plan to avoid taxation and probate? If you're 100% that you've done or haven't done anything that would subject you to unnecessarily probates and fees, then circle a number on the lower end of the scale. But if I brought up some points today that have you worried, circle a number on the higher end. Okay, so now that we've covered the challenges, let's talk about how to navigate the new retirement reality. There are many questions to address. So we've already talked about avoiding unnecessary taxation. But did you know that your taxable income can also cause your Medicare premiums to rise? That's right. If we're not careful, we could end up paying taxes on income we're not even using and increasing our healthcare costs in the process. So let's make sure that doesn't happen. How much in future taxes could you face if most of your retirement money is sitting in a traditional IRA or a 401k? The real question is, when do you start taking withdrawals? Do you wait until 73 to take your RMDs, your required minimum distributions? Or do you start an installment plan earlier? If you take smaller installments now, you'll pay today's tax rate. And right now, we're in one of the lowest tax rate environments in over 50 years. But if you wait until 73, maybe because you don't need the income yet, you could be paying at a higher future tax rate that's completely unknown. These are the kind of questions we help you answer so you can decide what makes the most sense for your situation. And finally, what happens to you or your partner if one of you passes away? What's the tax event that follows? These are all key pieces of the puzzle, and they're exactly the type of conversations we'll have to help you navigate this new retirement reality. Take a moment and think about the person you're watching this with, or think about your family. What would the impact be on them if you don't have a plan? Would they know what to do? Would they be protected? Would they have the financial security to carry on without stress or uncertainty? These are tough times, but they're important ones, because at the end of the day, planning isn't about your money. It's about the people you love and the future you want for them. I want to bring us back to where we started this evening. At the beginning, I said my goal is to help you understand the new retirement reality, or at least to learn something new. Remember our discussion about the yield sign? Did we all know it's red? Most of us thought it was yellow because that's what it used to be. Today, we learned about a couple who thought they had everything covered. They were great savers. They didn't overspend or live extravagant lives. They contributed their 401k. They avoided debt. They thought their plan was solid, but what they didn't know was how to forecast for the retirement they actually wanted to live. They saved money, but didn't create the memories they dreamed of having. At some point, we all reach a fork in the road, and we have to make a choice. When it comes to your future, if what you thought was true turned out not to be true, when would you want to know? The truth is, we're living in a new retirement reality. Some of the strategies that work for past generations simply won't work the same way today. And honestly, I don't know what I don't know either. That's why we keep learning, planning, and adapting. I'd like to close by telling you a story about a couple who came to us. They had saved well, but weren't sure if everything was okay. Their advisor just wanted to manage their money. He never asked what they wanted or what their dreams and goals were. By listening to them, we created a plan. Now, they're enjoying their go-go years with confidence. Even in this volatile market, we protected their money. We captured strong returns in up years with no caps or limits, locked in gains, eliminated market risk and fees, and kept their accounts tax deferred. Their assets are also sheltered from lawsuits and long-term care claims for the surviving spouse. About 6 months ago, they turned on an income stream they can't outlive while keeping full control of their money. You know what happens when you do that for people? You get thank you letters. On your sheet, write this down. The 4 main types of annuities. Number 1, variable annuity. Full risk of the market and moderate to high fees. Number 2, fixed annuity. Think CD issued by an insurance company. It's insured, risk-free, tax-deferred, and pays a fixed rate for a fixed term. Number 3, indexed annuity. Goes up with the market, but doesn't go down. It's guaranteed, locks in gains, and many are sheltered from lawsuits or long-term care claims, often with no fees. Number 4, immediate annuity. You give the insurance company your money. They pay you for life. But payments rarely adjust for inflation, and most of the time, the balance is gone when you pass away. If an advisor ever pressures you to sign an annuity, stand up and say, "Thank you. I'll take these home and review my options." That makes you proactive, not reactive. Don't rush into anything you don't understand. When evaluating annuities, focus on 3 things: risk, fees, and liquidity. Thank you for spending your time with us today. We look forward to helping you build your own personalized plan so you can enjoy all 3 phases of retirement with clarity and confidence.